Hello, I'm John Green, and this is Crash Course U.S. History. Today we are talking about slavery, the major precursor to the U.S. Civil War. The economy of the South and the industry of the North relied upon the cotton industry, which was cultivated through the use of hard slave labor.
Okay, John. Quit playing hide and seek.
Sorry, Stan. Mr. Green, didn't the rest of the world have slavery too?
Oh, me from the past, you sweet, sweet idiot. The rest of the world didn't have slaves at this time. France got rid of slavery in 1794, and Britain and Canada abolished it in 1833. For once, Canada actually beat us at something. Until we got to the moon first. Stan, why is there a Middle Eastern kid for the Founding Fathers' faces? Whatever. Before the invention of the cotton gin in 1794 by Eli Whitney, slavery was on the decline in the South. But after the invention, cotton and slavery were on the rise. The South produced more than half the world's cotton supply, and countries like England, gosh, those tea sippers, relied on the finished product so that they could ship it back to the U.S. to sell it to us for profit. The slaveocracy of cotton was due in part to the North as well as they industrialized the cotton industry. The hierarchy in the South was prevalent amongst plantation owners, while a common misconception is that most Southern planters had huge plantations. With hundreds of slaves, only about 1,700 families had plantations that big, and for the most part, they controlled the politics of the South. Only about 25% of all Southern whites owned slaves, and the other 75% owned only about 5 or 6 or none. Known as hillbillies and crackers, most were subsistence farmers that lived on their own crops and had a dream centered upon upward social mobility and owning slaves or plantations of their own. But the excessive cultivation of cotton began to cause soil depletion. The land began to wear thin, forcing small farmers to sell their land holdings to more prosperous neighbors and move to the north or west. The plantation system was financially unstable. The dependence on a one-crop economy, whose price was at the mercy of world conditions, was a risk to the financial well-being of the United States. Southern planters resented the North's benefit at their expense. They were also outraged by large-scale European immigration to the North, which added to its manpower and wealth. Immigration to the South was typically discouraged by the competition of slave labor. 50,000 free blacks living in the Upper South that were freed by emancipation after the Revolutionary War or by working after hours and earning enough money to pay for their freedom. Some people, such as William T. Johnson, even purchased their own slaves. A traitor, man, I swear. But even those who were free were at a constant risk of being captured by slave owners and being placed back into slavery. Northerners and Southerners alike hated the free blacks because they competed with poor whites for labor and saw them as an inferior race that should not mix with the Caucasian race. Oftentimes, Northerners were even more prejudiced than their Southern counterparts, and abolitionists such as Frederick Douglass were mobbed by angry Northerners on multiple occasions. Aw, Stan, man, you got me good.
Oh yeah.
Let's go to the thought bubble.
How much for the kids?
300.
$100.
That's fine. Take her.
Okay, thank you.
No, not my child. My sister.
Life for slaves was a life with no basic human rights. Slaves were forced to work dawn to dusk in terrible conditions and were often whipped or beaten for insolence. Separation of family members was common. Slaves that were separated would rarely see each other again. As said by a former slave, "They sold my mother, sister, and brother to old man Askew and a slave speculator, and they were shipped to the Mississippi bottoms in a boxcar. I never heard from my mother any more. I never seed my brother again, but my sister come back to Charlotte. She come to see me. She married and lived there till she died. Patsy Mitchner, age 84, Raleigh, North Carolina." And federal law refused to recognize marriage among Africans. However, in contrast to white planters, Africans avoided marriage to first cousins and siblings. Hey, Kentuckians still do that, right? Now it's time for the mystery document. Man, that's a big house. We now propose to correct a most extraordinary and mischievous error into which the people of the South have unconsciously fallen. Agriculture, it is well known, is the sole boast of the South, and, strange to say, many pro-slavery Southerners who in our latitude pass for intelligent men are so puffed up with the idea of our performance in this respect that they speak of the North as a sterile region unfit for civilization and quite dependent on the South for the necessities of life. Oh, it's a book. It's Harry Beecher Stowe. No. Then it's Impending Crisis of the South by Hamburger Helper's brother Hinton. Hinton Helper's Impending Crisis of the South tried to explain that slavery was actually detrimental to the economy due to the majority not owning slaves. While slave rebellions happened on occasion, none were successful and all resulted in worse conditions and harsh retribution. These rebellions made owners paranoid and often caused them to have to degrade themselves along with their slaves. As Frederick Douglass said, "We have men stealers for ministers, women whippers for missionaries, and cradle plunderers for church members. The man who wields the blood-clotted cowskin during the week fills the pulpit on Sunday and claims to be a minister of the meek and lowly Jesus. The slave auctioneer's bell and the church-going bell chime in with each other, and the bitter cries of the heartbroken slave are drowned in the religious shouts of his pious master." Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Crash Course is produced and directed by Stam Hamilton. Our script supervisor is me from the past. The associate producer is Quebec, and the script was written by my high school's history teacher's daughter, Little Hinkle, and myself, and our graphics team is Thought Bubble. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe to Crash Course. And as we say in my hometown, don't forget to be awesome.